Ready?
You are live.
Thank you. I will call to order the Personnel Administration and Higher Education Committee for December 2nd. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of our prior meeting? Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody on from SUNY? Not this morning. All right. We do have a meeting. There is I want to say it's an executive committee meeting on Friday. If anyone is interested or needs an update, just let me know. Okay. And Ms. Figueroa, are you online with us?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
The only items I have this month are my 2 reports that I produce each month. So I'm happy to entertain any questions on either of those. And the one other thing I wanted to mention is we did have a pending discussion from previous meetings regarding the purchase of NovaTime time clocks. And I've worked with Mike Colvin from IT to do some additional research. And I think his recommendation is to move forward and purchase the clocks, which we transferred the funds for, but I wanted to see if he was on, if he could speak to that.
Yep, he is actually here with us in the boardroom, so I'll ask him to come to the podium.
And perfect. Thank you.
An update. Thank you.
Morning. Yeah, so we previously bought some used clock, which worked out well. We bought 3.
Mike, get closer to the mic, please.
Oh. We bought 3 clocks, previously used ones. We used 2 of them, so we're down to 1. We had transferred the money to do 5, and we really should to keep them on hand because of the age of them. We did look at the option where they had you can purchase them or rent them kind of thing, but it's all or none. Purchase all 28 or rent all 28. But if you do the math out, they want to, if you were to rent them, it's $127 a month. Sounds good until you go times 28 times 12 over a 5-year period. It's over $200,000. And for that same period, we can spend $98,000 and just buy them. And every day over 5 years, we're saving even more money. But we just need to have some on hand to keep moving, just due to the age of them. because we're getting almost 10 years out of them. So I would hope we just move forward to get the 5. And I still keep looking for the used ones where we can save money like we have done.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, didn't we have a couple out on repair that were coming back too? Did they? I thought we had a couple on repair. Maybe I was.
Yeah, there might have been one that was put back in service.
Oh, all right.
Then we just had 2 others that had failed that were very, very old clocks.
I'm very pleased that you brought that up and we were able to find some used ones. And like you said, we discussed it and you said they really look slightly used. So whatever we can do to keep them on and keep us going, you know, that to me is a lot cheaper than trying to buy new ones or trying to change those to run. So you know, keep moving on that one. So, yeah. Yeah,
so we're asking us to buy the new ones that we had transferred before, but still keep looking for used ones. Just because when you go looking for used ones, if they're there, they're there. If they're not, they're not.
So Mr. Colvin, we had already moved some money for you to buy new ones. You'll keep looking for used ones as they become available and you'll buy new as needed too.
Correct. I have an automated notification if anything comes up that might fit what we're looking for.
Okay.
Nice.
That sounds like a good plan of attack. Any further questions? Mike, just stay there for 1 second. Jackie, do you have anything further?
No, that's all I had for today.
Great. Any questions for Jackie? All right, I'm just gonna skip over Trish for a second while Mike is up here. Go to number 4. Mr. Colvin, could you give us what's going on with that request?
So looking for a resolution, just over a year ago, we got a resolution to extend our phone contract for 3 years. And it would be effective from when the construction of the service actually started. For many reasons, it didn't start till about a month and a half ago. But it's all done, it's in place, it's working. Our phone bill dropped $1,000 a month, so it's a good deal. Well, last week they did an automated offer. Says, hey, if you renew for 3 years, we'll give you $6,700 worth of credit. Well, consider my bill's only $1,900 a month. That's a pretty good deal. But it seems kind of fishy to say, we just started our 3-year term a month and a half ago. If we start a new one, it doesn't add to the 3 years. It starts from the day we sign it. So if we were to sign it today, I'm only going to extend it a month and a half from what we already agreed to, and I get $6,700. The only caveat is it's an offer that comes and goes. And so it could be, it's there today because I checked, but it could be gone tomorrow. So what I'm asking for today is whatever the proper wording is to have to approve that we do this but to ratify the actions of the chairwoman to be able to electronically sign this today so we don't lose the offer. And it does seem very goofy as to how can we just be a month and a half into it, get all this money? And I've got correspondence with the sales rep saying it doesn't make any sense, but it's true. And yes, you'll get this money if you sign it before the offer disappears. They just don't know how long the offer is going to be there because it's an automated process.
Okay, so we had just recently entered a new 3-year contract, but what he's saying is because of this promotion, if we re-enter it now, we'll get the 674608 in savings. But we would have to, by the time we get to the board meeting, we would be ratifying the chairwoman's execution of this contract. Mr. Elman, do you have any concerns with going in this direction?
No.
All right, could I have a motion to that effect and we'll get it on the floor? Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Garrity. Thank you. Any discussion or further questions about going forward? Allowing that reauthorization. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you for finding that, Mike. That's great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Anything else? No?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Ms. Nenninger.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are lucky to be hiring into our civil service position an employee from the county with 5 years experience. So we'd like to reflect some of that experience in the adjustment and amendment to the table of organization and salary schedule going from 39,973 to 43,045.
Great. Okay, could I have a motion to bring this to the floor? Supervisor McGowan, Supervisor Driscoll. All right, this is in your packet, item 3. Are there any questions for Trish? We're excited you've been able to hire someone.
So are we.
All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Anything further?
Nothing further today. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day. All right. Ms. Clute, are you there with us?
I am here.
There you are. Thank you. Go ahead.
The first item on my agenda is our annual renewal of property and casualty insurance. We have our representatives from Arthur J. Gallagher are also here. I can see them online to talk about our renewal. And then I'll ask for a resolution to approve the payment of our insurance for 2022. I believe Ryan wanted to start out. Is that correct, Ryan, if that's okay?
I can do that if there's no objection.
Sure. Go ahead, Administrator Moore.
So this is our annual renewal. As Amy stated, Arthur J. Gallagher is our broker. They work with the carrier, which is the primary carrier we have is Zurich. The program is budgeted for just over $1 million next year. We do an estimate and we put the estimate into the budget. The initial quote for all the premiums for all the policies from Zurich and our couple of other carriers added up to $1,130,000. So there was this significantly over the budget. Arthur J. Gallagher then worked very hard with Zurich to reduce those rates. They got it down to $1,067,513. They also worked very hard on a second option. They aggressively marketed our coverage to every carrier that they do business with. And they were able to get an option that almost made it with a different carrier. But the problem was our umbrella policy, our excess liability policy. One of the pieces that it includes is what they call SML coverage, sexual misconduct liability. The carrier that put together the second option for us was not willing to quote us on that. And it's not anything that's unique to Warren County. It has to do with statutory changes that the state of New York made with regard to the statute of limitations with the Child Victims Act. And for counties that deal with foster care, that increases our liability. So what Arthur J. Gallagher did is they shopped that particular policy around to 16 other carriers, and all the carriers declined to quote us on it. So that left us in a position we discussed with the county attorney's office, with Larry and Ryan, who handles these cases. we just didn't think it was a wise position to put the county in to forego that coverage to save a couple of dollars this year. So we're recommending option one, sticking with Zurich, continuing that coverage, even though we're going to need to add a little bit more into next year's budget to afford it.
Amy, did you want to have our representatives talk?
Yes, please.
An update, short, go ahead. If you can.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks for that.
They're unmuted.
Can everyone hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Ryan. Nice to see everyone. Again, my name is Salim Bartok. This is Colin David. And we work with the Gallagher Public Entity team. We've been working with the county for a couple years now, and closely with Amy, Jen, and Ryan. So again, nice to see everyone. Ryan, if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is just share my screen and just provide a brief overview of just to give everyone kind of a refresher of the services we provide the county, and then I can get into the county's insurance program structure and the marketing summary as far as what went into the renewal and the the quote comparisons, and then we're happy to field any questions as we go through it or at the end. Does that work for everyone? Yeah, okay.
We're gonna, I think staff here allowed you to share your screen, but I will ask you, we have a long agenda today, so if you could try to just give us an expedited version of your services and get, give us more detail on the quote that you have for next year, okay?
Sure.
If you don't mind,
fair
thank you.
enough.
Yep,
Fair enough. Why don't we just go right into the program structure and the quote comparison? We'll make it brief.
okay, I don't want to rush you too much. You can cover what you need to.
Don't want to rush you, but
We can't
Okay.
see, we can't see anything yet, though.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
Yep. All right, it's coming
Can everyone
through.
see that?
Yes, yep, there we go.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So again, we will try to make this brief, but these are some, not all, but some of the more important services that we provide to the county, and we work very closely with Amy and Jen on providing. So the day-to-day services are up here, and they're pretty pretty commonplace. But as a broker, we go out and secure competitive insurance coverage for all lines of business. That's inclusive of excess workers' compensation, cyber liability, flood, all those different lines of coverage. We consult with the county to formulate a marketing strategy. We work with Amy and Jen to produce comprehensive underwriting data for the different insurance carriers we work with. We summarize the marketing results, and that's what we'll get into in a little bit here. We provide our consultation and recommendation as to which option the county should go with. And then ultimately just continually administer the county's program on a rolling basis, invoicing, policy issuance, auto ID cards, whatever Amy and Jen need from us. As far as the value-added services and the services that we really wanted to highlight that we've been working very hard with Amy and Jen over the past year or two to accomplish. Claims advocacy, that's a big piece of what we do. When a claim happens and it's reported to the insurance carrier, whether it's Zurich or someone else, we have one of our claim advocates step in and advocate on the county's behalf should there be some sort of coverage or claim dispute. Risk control, building walkthroughs, which we conducted with Amy and Jen last year. This past year, we developed what's called a Claims Connect report, which allowed us to determine the claim frequency and severity of the county's claims, and kind of broke it down by line of coverage. So gave us a good idea of where the problem areas are and how we can help in those areas. We met with the county attorney several times to review and strengthen insurance contracts and the risk transfer guidance that the county currently undertakes. And then lastly, we helped the county pretty recently here report claims to prior insurance carriers that have just recently come in, and they were, they had to be reported to carriers back in the 80s and 90s by tracking down those old policies through our contacts at various markets and kind of getting Amy to the right person so that she could report the claim and ultimately hopefully get coverage for the county from a carrier the county used to do business with. So again, that's a pretty high level overview of what we do. But what I'd like to do now is unless anyone has any questions, I'll get into the county's program structure.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yes. It's a little hard for us to read, but we can see it.
How's that? Is that better?
That's better. Yep.
Okay. So again, this is the county's current and renewal insurance program structure, right? So it's just kind of a visual of all the different policies and how they're overlaid to give you an idea of what the county currently purchases and is insured for. So I'll just go through it briefly.
That's a nice visual. Just
On the
in pieces.
Thank you. On the left here, this is the county's property insurance, right? So the county has property insurance with Zurich with a $157 million blanket limit and a $10,000 deductible. Again, that's property, inland marine, boiler and machinery, those types of things. These next three columns are all of the liability lines that are all with Zurich as well. So you look here, general liability. The county has $11 million worth of per occurrence coverage for general liability, with the primary layer and the umbrella layer stacked on top of each other. No deductible there. Now for law enforcement liability, public officials liability, and employment practices liability, same $11 million worth of coverage, but there's a $50,000 deductible tied to those lines. And then lastly, auto liability, no deductible, same $11 million of coverage between, again, primary and excess layers per accident. So that's the Zurich program here. This green column here is the healthcare general liability and professional liability. That's with Allied World, $5,000 deductible, $1 million worth of per occurrence coverage. The orange here is the county's crime policy, a $2 million per loss limit with a $20,000 deductible. This lighter blue here is the workers' compensation coverage for the county. So the county self-insures the first $2 million and purchases an excess workers' compensation policy here with Midwest that has a statutory limit tied to it, right? So essentially unlimited coverage if you were ever to breach that $2 million self-insured retention. And then lastly, the cyber insurance, which is really the hot topic of the year, I would say, with AIG. This is one that we aggressively marketed as well, $1 million limit with a $50,000 deductible. There are a few other policies that aren't included in the graphics, a few ancillary policies that I won't get into, but they're listed down here. Coverage for the Warren, Washington County IDAs down here, liability coverage for the airport, and a few others. So this is the county's current and moving forward will be the county's insurance program structure for 2022. I'll pause there real quick. Any questions on that?
I'm not seeing any. Go ahead.
Okay. Now we'll get into the quote comparison here. Okay, so again, I'll try to keep this brief and relatively high level, but to Ryan's point earlier, I think he summed it up pretty well. What happened was really this whole year, and even going back to next year, the insurance marketplace for property insurance, liability insurance, cyber insurance, all the various lines of coverage the county purchases, has been very, very tough, and we're in what's called a hard market, right? So because of the types of claims and the amount of payouts that carriers have had to endure over the past couple of years, the insurance marketplace has gotten very tough in the sense that carriers are increasing their rates, they're cutting back on the amount of limits they're willing to offer. Sometimes they're implementing higher deductibles than we're used to seeing. So that all leads to again what we call a hardening marketplace. So because of that, we went to Ryan and Amy and Jen pretty early on, and we said, let us, why don't we go out and shop this to all of the carriers we work with, and all in, when you take into account all the lines of coverage the county purchases, we went to over 30 different carriers for property, liability, cyber, everything else. And the renewal option here is what we agreed upon with the Warren County team. We felt was the best option moving forward for the county, right? And that's staying with your current carrier, Zurich. But again, I did just want to point out, we did aggressively shop this to make sure that we were getting the best deal and that we could drive down the cost of this renewal as much as possible. So I won't go through this line by line, just in the interest of time, but the coverage is pretty much identical to what you currently have. The coverage moving forward will be, that is. And I'll scroll down to the bottom here. If you're looking at year over year, this is the increase that we were able to negotiate. So all in, the expiring premium for the county is about $862,000, and that's jumping to a little over $1.06 million. So about a 23% increase. The initial quotes we received from Zurich and the other carriers came in at about 1.13, like Ryan alluded to earlier, and we were able to drive that cost down about 7%. So that took a lot of back and forth and negotiating with the various underwriters, but we were able to whittle them down to the number we had presented here. And to Ryan's,
it was originally a 30% increase in our premium cost, is what you're saying.
Yep, that's right. And to Ryan's point earlier, we were able to secure another option with a different carrier other than Zurich, but unfortunately that carrier and every other carrier we went to weren't willing to offer SML coverage, which is sexual misconduct liability, for the umbrella, right? For the $10 million umbrella that the county purchases. So we felt that although the pricing was more competitive on that option, right? It was much more competitive, that we couldn't recommend the county move forward, with that option and essentially go bare for that coverage, because it is a big exposure. The county has had some claims, in that line of coverage, and especially with the statute of limitations in New York State being kind of opened up as of late, the claims that we see come down and the sort of judgments and settlements that we see come down for those types of claims can be very, very pricey. So,
just for our understanding though, what was the premium for the option without that coverage of the SML?
I'll show you here. Excuse me. I know this is kind of tough to see, but you just look at this last column here.
Mm-hmm.
It was a decrease year over year. So the premium was $818,429.
Okay, let me just take 1 second. I know where you stand,
Sure.
right? I think you do not want us to be bare for this for 2022 from that perspective, correct?
Right.
And Larry, do you want to weigh in on that? I mean, that's a $200,000 more than difference.
With the statute that the legislature passed regarding the Child Victim Act and cases flowing out of it, every action has a reaction, and the action by the state has caused a reaction by these insurance carriers to increase premiums. And the reason is the liability is unknowable. Specifically, there's always a potential for a cause of action to arise in 2022. And as of today, there's no statute of limitations for that action. So that case could be brought in 2023, 2053, 2073, and the county would have no coverage for the year 2022 for whenever that claim arises, which is, and I defer to the experts on premiums and dollar amounts, but it's an unquantifiable, it's a hard to quantify exposure, not just for the county, but for the insurance company, because unless there's some future change at the state level, there continues to be this sense of an unlimited, unexpiring exposure. And in executive, hopefully if there's an executive session during my report, we can talk more in detail what those exposures look like today for past claims, which might help, I think, elaborates what the future risk looks like as well.
Okay, so we can't go without this coverage is what it sounds like to me. One more, Brad, and then I'll come to you.
That would have been the very short answer. I cannot ever recommend we proceed without the coverage because of the unknown liability to the taxpayer in the future.
Let me just ask Gallagher though, is there a way to buy the, renew the policy at the 818,000 and separately purchase this SML policy?
So, thank you. That was that the chairperson that asked that? That's exactly what we tried to do as we went through this process, right? So this option here is the difference is that Travelers would be providing the coverage that Zurich currently offers. But again, Travelers wasn't willing to offer that coverage. So what we did was we went out to 16 other carriers that currently write sexual misconduct liability and tried to get them to provide a quote for just that coverage individually, right? So essentially a standalone policy just for that coverage.
Right.
All 16 of those carriers declined to quote.
Okay.
And all the carriers we went to it was very much all encompassing, right? So we didn't leave anyone out. Ultimately, it is becoming almost an uninsurable risk, and something that carriers really stray away from, especially in New York State due to the statute of limitations. So, to answer your question, the answer is no. We wouldn't be able to find that coverage standalone at this time.
Okay. That's probably reiterating what you already said, but I guess hammering us over the head with it. Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you, Chairman. That was the question I was going to ask, if we were able to purchase a smaller policy or the cheaper policy and get a rider. Unfortunately, it sounds like, our hands are tied here, and basically them throwing in saying, we'll give you this coverage, but it's going to be, pretty much $200,000 more. And with today's changes and all the, the things that are coming in, especially with the New York State law, I hate to go out there and not have the coverage. So.
Me too. Okay. Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time if you want to keep going.
Sure, yeah. And just to kind of wrap up that, I agree with you, Supervisor McGowan. But the tough thing with this coverage is that, and I think the county attorney alluded to this, that it's really impossible to know the true exposure, right? Because it's not only the types of settlements and that are coming down and have come down as of late that have increased, 3, 4, 5-fold, but it's also the fact that you could have a claim occur next year that isn't reported until 2050, and so you'd be bare, right, for that coverage, and the claim's reported 30 years from now, right, and then the county would still be on the hook for it. So it truly is one of those things that I know it's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you see the savings and the discrepancy between the two options. Like you mentioned, it's over $200,000. But when you're looking at a county of your size and a total budget of over $40 million, from our point of view, it wouldn't be prudent to go without the coverage for that savings, because it could lead to very, very costly claims in the future. And just as a sort of benchmarking point, the claims, a law firm that we work with recently ran a study, and the claims that they've seen come down in New York State associated to this type of coverage range the average claims range anywhere from 1.8 to 18 million, right? So you have a $5 million claim come in, which is again on the low end for an SML claim. The county would be on the hook for anything in excess of 1 million if you went with the traveler's option. So you'd be paying out $4 million right there in expenses, on one claim. So ultimately, that's why our recommendation is what it is.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep.
I do have a question in the boardroom. Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, just, so the insurance would cover any claim that occurs in 2022, regardless of when it's brought. In other words, if it's brought in 2052, the insurance on a claim that was in 2022, we would be insured under the policy we had in force in 2022. Is that so? And that's the reason the cost increases, because the insurance company has to provide the insurance for any claim with no statute of limitations. Is that correct? Or
That's correct.
okay. Thank you.
Aside from the state imposed statute of limitations, but yes, that's correct. So whatever insurance carrier is insures the county for a specific policy year, you move forward, you move forward 30, 40, 45 years, it would still come back to that carrier that was insuring the county at the time the incident occurred.
Right. And we do have some of these claims. Mr. Elman, did you want to address this?
So long as the county can produce proof of coverage for the year 2022 in that future year. And if I'm the county attorney in 2022, the county will be able to produce coverage for that year in the future.
That makes the cost
Supervisor Connell.
understandable, right?
Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, just a quick question. What happens if the insurance company defuncts in that time and they're no longer around? Just a question and a thought. I mean, it's a, everything's a gamble. We get in the insurance gambling that nothing happens, but say something does, and then the insurance company's not around. Now, it's a strong company, but it's just a thought.
Yeah. Mr. Elman? Got any thoughts on that one?
I'll definitely defer to the broker.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a great question. So if you recall, I'm not sure if everyone does, but when we came on board in 2019 to going into the 2020 policy year, the county moved from NYMER to Zurich, right? And that was for a variety of reasons. One was cost, another was Zurich had provided better coverage. But one of the biggest reason, in our opinion, was, and it speaks to your point, Supervisor McGowan, is that Zurich is an admitted carrier in New York State, right? So what that means is that if Zurich becomes insolvent this year, next year, 15 years from now, if they become insolvent and when a claim occurs, they're no longer around, they can't pay the claim, the New York State Guarantee Fund is on the hook for paying that claim because they're a New York State admitted carrier. NYMER was not. So should that occur with NYMER, you're kind of out of luck, right? And the county would be on the hook for paying that. Again, the odds that a carrier like Zurich or Travelers or even NYMER becomes insolvent, they're very low, but it is a nice safety blanket to have.
Go ahead.
And that's probably hence, the price differences too. You get what you pay for, but like I said,
Right.
It was just a question I had and a thought. So thank you again.
That was good. And I think this
Yep.
overall coverage issue is something we could probably raise with NISAC about how counties are gonna cover this going forward.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't see anything.
We have.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, guys.
We're just going to wrap up here. We have one last slide that we just wanted to show the county, but give you an idea of your premiums historically, and I'll try to make this a little bigger. Did everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, this is going back to the 2016 policy year, right? The insurance marketplace is very cyclical in nature, right? And I think this graph shows that. But, you know, I know this renewal is 23% increase. We're not happy as your broker and consultant. We're not happy with it. We're not happy with it with the carriers and what the marketplace is doing. I'm sure it's not, you know, good news from your point of view. But to point out, if you go back to 2016, you're right around this coming year, you'll be right around that same level of insurance spend that you were in 2016. And if you take into account a hardening marketplace over the past 2.5 years, and inflation, which is averaging, you know, 5-6% a year, you're really not in a bad spot as a county. And you see these decreases and this increase here in 2019. We came on board here, so this decrease from 977 to 787, we saved the county about $200,000 when we came on board. So, you know, I know, again, I know the year-over-year comparison isn't great news, but if you look back 5 or 6 years, the county's in a pretty decent spot and saved a decent amount of money a couple of years ago. So.
Well, that is a bit of positive news that the overall trend isn't too terrible. Thank you.
Right.
Any questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I don't see any other questions here. Thank you so much for zooming in with us and giving us this update and summary of your coverage areas and the new coverage. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you all. Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Amy, do you have anything before I take a motion for this 5A?
I do not.
All right. Could I have a motion to the effect of 5A, a request to authorize the renewal for 2022 property and casualty insurance in the amount not to exceed $1,065,000? Is that the correct amount?
$1,067,513.
Let's just make it
Amy's got her hand up.
$1,068,000. Amy, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I had 1,062,000, Ryan, but I'm happy with 1,067,000. I put a little extra in there for changes that occur from the time that our brokers go to market until the renewal. An example of that would be we're adding that new building at the airport, the snow removal equipment building. So we want to make sure that we add a little and don't do the exact amount just for that reason, so we can pay the bills when they do come. I don't intend to use all the extra, but it's a cushion so that we can get the bills paid.
Can you give me a number, Ryan, to recommend?
Is that a large enough cushion, Amy, or do you need to go to $1,070,000? What do you think?
Let's do the 1,070,000. Like I say, I don't anticipate, but that way we won't have to come back and hold up the bills.
Sounds good to me. So to
Thank you.
that effect, $1,070,000. Supervisor McGowan,
Yes.
Supervisor Driscoll, and Garrity. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody, on that one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, Amy, it looks like you are a very busy woman for B and C.
Yes, I don't know how to say no. Item B is a request to authorize me to serve as the treasurer of the New York State Association of Self-Insured Counties for the years of 2022 and 2023. It's a 2-year term. This is some position I've held for quite a few years now. I've been on that board since 2006. So I just would like the resolution so that I can do those duties.
Is that C as well?
C is the Empire State Safety Association, very similar. It's a safety-oriented association. And the term is the same, 2022 and 23.
Great. Could I have a motion for B and C? Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Second by Supervisor McGowan. With our congratulations and thanks, and please don't work too hard. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Letter D
Mhm.
is the contract with Bill Lindoff of Pro Cuts. This is for our chainsaw safety training that we offer to all the participants in the self-insurance plan. It's for a contract term of next year. The amount that I'm requesting is 6 days, up to 6 days. I don't know that we'll use them all. His fee is $900 per day, plus we pay travel, the hotel and mileage. This is the same price we paid 2 years ago. And it comes out of the self-insurance fund. This is our most popular training by far. Our folks really appreciate the hands-on chainsaw training.
Supervisor McGowan on the motion. Second by Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? Great program. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Anything else, Amy?
I do have one other item just for discussion. The contract with the Arthur Gallagher brokers, the insurance brokers, expires December of 2022, which is almost a year from now, December 20th, I believe it is, 21st, 20th. And we have an option to extend that an additional 3 years. That was the result of an RFP in 2019. If we want to RFP, if we're not happy with their services or it's just the will of this committee to RFP, we would need to start that process early in January. It's a very long, labor-intensive process to select an insurance broker. So that's why I'm bringing it to you today. I would like direction. I would like to extend that. Ryan and I have had conversations. I don't think there's any reason that I'm seeing that we wouldn't extend it, especially with the market so hard. I'm concerned we do a lot of work and not get any benefit out of it. So just for discussion, to make sure it's okay with you guys, a year from now, almost, we extend that agreement. We will not need board action for that. That's just an extension letter from purchasing.
Administrator Moore?
Yeah, I would agree with Amy's assessment there. If the intent is not to extend it, even though they have one more year out of their 3-year contract, we need to get started right away. Last time, just so you know, the process to get a new insurance broker, by the end of January, we have to send out an RFP for a consultant, and then the consultant will work with us to RFP broker carrier combinations, which is a very labor intensive, very technical process that you need a consultant to do. That process will take the better part of the year, and towards the end of the summer into fall, they'll be making recommendations on broker carrier combinations to go with, so that by this time next year, when the Arthur J. Gallagher contract does expire, we're either going to renew with them because they were the best broker carrier combination, or we're going to go in a different direction.
So we don't need a motion today unless the committee feels like it's important that we start the RFP process. Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you. I guess my question is, and really, in insurance, a lot of, people feel comfortable with the insurance company. They always pay a little bit of increase every year. And then, and then all of a sudden, they decide to, look at some different insurance, and they found out that, they were paying a lot more than they had to. I just, what reassurance do we have that, basically, no offense if you guys are still on this, you're putting the boots to us there, because we're giving it to you. I just, it's just a concern with not, keeping everybody on their toes, and it's just a question, it's not a trust.
It is a good question. And I remember when we went through that process of the RFP, we hadn't done it in a very long time. I'm just not sure it's time to do it again. Maybe Administrator Moore?
I take a gander at that. I mean, if the concern is that they're essentially going to lowball us when it's renewal time and then jack us up when we're into a long-term contract, this year would be the time for them to do that. Because they know that we need to make this decision as to whether or not to start the new RFP process again, or whether to stick with them. I think instead what we saw this year is that our price went up. It's not kind of a lowball situation. And I think that they did work very hard to offer us a different alternative. It would have been probably, not to get into questions of ethics, but it may have been advantageous to them to really push us on the traveler's option. But they didn't believe it was a responsible option, and they recommended that we not do that. So I do have trust in them from that standpoint, that they're treating us well.
You know, the only reason I say that is you look the year that we got them and then it dropped down and then it went up a little and then we had the spike. But, you know, the way you go back and explain that, I mean, this would have been the year that maybe they wanted to kick it back down. And I understand the expenses are up across the board on everything. And unfortunately, you know, the world is becoming full, no offense, Larry, you know, full of lawyers and, you know, these suits just keep going up. Oh, and to you, Chairwoman, sorry, no offense to the lawyers in the room. So thank you.
Well, I do appreciate Amy bringing this to us so early. It is nice to have this time to consider it. I guess, I mean, we could try to do something next month if we change our mind. It'll just make it a tighter time frame for everybody.
Mhm.
But I'm not seeing the committee wanting to go forward with that process right now.
I'm happy.
All right. Amy, sorry, go ahead. You're muted. Yep.
We also, like any contract the county attorney writes, we have a termination clause. So if we decide somewhere in those 3 years that we are not happy for some reason, we could always, you know, go that route too. So it's not like we're tied to that. And also, you know, there's less and less insurance brokers out there now because a lot of these companies are assuming, you may recall in the news, our local Cool Insuring, who's provided our insurance many years in the last 20, 30 that I recall, is now under the Gallagher umbrella. So there's less brokers out there too. So I'm not sure the process would be as beneficial as it used to be in the old days when there was a broker on every street corner.
Good point about the out clause, though. That's a good reminder for us if we become unsatisfied later. All right, very good. Anything else, Amy?
That's it. Thank you.
Your portion, okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ellman.
Good morning. The first item is a resolution request form number 3. It's a new contract with LexisNexis, which is one of the 2 main legal research platforms available for attorneys in the United States and in other countries as well. This came to my attention shortly after I joined the county. There's not much negotiation on these numbers and these contract numbers. They kind of use a fixed schedule. What I can say in my past experience is LexisNexis, their pricing tends to be lower than the competitor, which is Westlaw. I think based on my prior experience, these numbers for these contracts over the next 3 years are reasonable numbers. They actually appear lower than what I've seen for private law firms and what they're paying for a similar service. The company also only works in 3-year terms, 1 year with 1-year increases each year. The increases set forth are $5 a month into 2023 of an increase and a $6 increase into the 3rd year of the contract. I'd ask the board to approve this. Absent this contract, the county attorney's office will not have legal research capabilities at our desktop or here in the boardroom as of January 1st, because that's when the current contract expires.
Supervisor Garrity on the motion.
Yes.
Thank you. Second, Supervisor McGowan. Any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Ellman, for bringing this forward and researching the options.
One matter I would like to just kind of touch on, because I'm not sure how much it's been addressed in the past. And it's really the coordination that my office does with the treasurer's office and real property tax services on an ongoing basis concerning delinquent properties in Warren County. The process for tax foreclosure starts later in 2022 But the process of obtaining compliance starts with the treasurer's office, my office, and Real Tax Property Services, August 20th, give or take. So for example, on August 20th of this year, my office received from the treasurer's office a list of 441 parcels that had delinquent taxes as of that date. Before the tax foreclosure process even begins, there's a series of letters that go out to remind and encourage not only primary owners of properties, but any lien holders that we can identify on record of the status of the taxes. And the goal of those letters is to try to reduce the total number of delinquent properties as much as we possibly can before there's any need to move forward with the more formal tax foreclosure process. About 882 letters were issued already for either primary owners or lien holders to encourage and advise them of their status. Through the end of November, it's my understanding that the treasurer's office has been able to collect 155 unpaid delinquent taxes from those 441 parcels. And currently my office, with the assistance of the treasurer's office, is monitoring the remaining 286 parcels that still have unpaid taxes. In November, 29 parcels paid. I'm not saying it's in relation to this process that's in place before tax foreclosure starts, but I think every possible time you can touch the property owner and the taxpayer to encourage them to take care of the issue encourages compliance so that we can reduce the number going forward into tax foreclosure. And then the only other piece on that, I'd like to just make sure the board's aware, there were 19 properties that had filed COVID hardships during 2021 and therefore were not included in the foreclosure proceedings for last year. Currently, the COVID hardship exclusion or restriction for foreclosures is scheduled to end in January. It's unknown whether that will be renewed going into 2022. If it is not renewed, 17 of those properties still have unpaid taxes. 2 of the properties that filed hardships have paid their tax arrears. Those 17 would be included in the 2022 numbers. If the exemption or limitation on lawsuit is expanded, then it's possible they will continue to not be on the list in 2022. So subject to any questions on that, I can provide a listing of pending lawsuits against the county, which I would like to discuss in executive session.
Hold on. I need to vote on the contract. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you. And Treasurer Swan, did you want to provide something?
Just real quick on the foreclosure, one of the things that my office is going to be doing in July of next year, which we have not done in probably 20 years, is send out a courtesy letter to anybody who has not paid their January 2022 tax. Because what's happened is by New York state law, there really isn't any notification that you haven't paid your taxes until the time that we start the foreclosure proceedings. So what we're going to do is just send out this courtesy letter and say, hey, your January tax bill was not paid. You know, you might want to take care of that before it becomes a problem.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Elman, then Mr. Moore.
Arriving with fresh eyes, I was really pleased to see the level of coordination with the treasurer's office to address these matters early. The letters that are coming from my office are the results of title searches and abstract searches to ensure that we are finding, per the statute, the individuals who are deemed primary owners or any significant lien holder. And by that, I basically mean a bank or other entity that's holding a mortgage against the property that doesn't want to lose their mortgage interest and may have an interest in paying those taxes for their borrower.
And your office and the treasurer's office also works closely with real property to make sure that we understand those owners.
100%,
Yeah.
all three of those, all three offices have a very nice system in place. I'm looking to be more a part of it going into 2022.
Okay, Larry, can you give us your case names? We'll take a motion if the committee so chooses to go into executive session.
Sure, the cases would be Laney Morgan versus Warren County, John David Smith versus the United Methodist Church, Warren County and Warren County DSS, Joshua Rouse, Rouse versus Warren County, Michael Easterbrooks versus Schenectady County and other counties, Forest Enterprises versus Warren County, June Maxim versus Pamela Vogel, Warren County Clerk and others. And those would be the cases I'd be addressing in executive session.
Larry, I believe you told me there was an item related to the recent auction. Do you need to talk to us about that in executive?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation as mentioned by our county attorney? Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Second by Supervisor Conover. Thank you. All those in favor? You are live. Thank you. No formal action taken in an executive session discussing pending litigation. Thank you, Mr. Ellman, for your report. Is there anything further under your report?
No, that concludes the county attorney report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Allen, report of the clerk.
Yep, 7A is the resolution tracking report that's in your packet. If you have any questions, just get in touch with me. I'd be happy to answer those. 7B, through the 2022 budget, we are reclassifying one position from a senior legislative office specialist to a second deputy clerk. That is Samantha Hogan's position. So that's being done through the budget, but we need permission to fill it.
Okay, that is 7B. Let me just catch up there. Do I have a motion, Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor McGowan? Any discussion or questions for Amanda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. That's it for me. That's it for you. All right. Thank you, Amanda. Supervisor Hogan, I think you're around. I'm not sure if you're available, but we can go right into it. If there's any questions, Supervisor Hogan is here. Request to amend table of organization and salary schedule for a new position in employment and training. Actually, it looks like there's two. And deleting two of the old counselor positions.
I'll move it.
Thank you. A and B. Second by Supervisor Conover. Any questions, discussion? Supervisor Hogan, did you want to mention anything about these?
We covered this in committee. It's basically taking two people that are already there and just changing their, because recognizing the scope of work that they're actually doing.
Did you work with Ms. Nenninger on that?
This is through Liza, and Liza deals with that.
Yes.
All right. I'm hearing up here that yes, Trish did have her eyes on this too.
Great.
So that's good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Anything further, Supervisor Hogan? Any last minute bringing it to the floor? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Supervisor Beatty, we have something from Government Ops. Request to amend the table, create and fill a new position of legal recording clerk in the clerk's office. Do I have a motion for that? Supervisor Garrity, second from Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? This came through committee.
Correct.
And they're deleting one of the old clerk positions. Very good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carried. Supervisor Frazier, she's not here today. Maybe we can have some help from Supervisor McDivitt? Looks
Basically,
like, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, it just, it reads as it reads. That's basically to create and fill the new positions and basically at the salaries indicated. So it's is what it is.
All right, so I'll take a motion for 10A and B. Supervisor Garrity?
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Conover? Any questions? That came through committee this morning, correct?
Mhm.
Yep, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. All right. Okay, these are new positions, correct, Ryan?
That's correct.
For C and D. They already have something in for the 2020 budget, but these would be brand new ones.
Yeah, the 2022 budget, she requested 2 public health educators. She was given 1. And the reason is the request looks a little different in August than it does now. So, and the second one, the budget request was for 1 additional registered professional nurse to help with the immunizations, the vaccinations, I should say. And this is for a second because she really believes that she has the need.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Driscoll. Sorry, hold on. I got my mask on though. I just note here that it's effective January 1st. Can we make that a little earlier or can we not do that? Say at the end of right after the board meeting.
It would be a difference of the start date of January 20th instead of, it's only 2 weeks.
You mean December 20th?
Yeah, December 20th as opposed to January.
Okay, so just leave it and it'll be cleaner that way.
You could if you wanted to.
Okay, so maybe best just to leave it as January 1. Okay. Anything else? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. That's C and D. I did C and D, right? Okay. All right. Coming out of Public Safety Committee, we have a request to create and fill a new position of Patrol Officer number 6 and delete the position of Civil Law Enforcement number 2. Moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Conover. We do have the sheriff here in the room if we have any questions. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. B is changing the title of School Resource Officer to a Special Patrol Officer. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, but I need just a little explanation.
Sure. I have a motion from Supervisor Garrity, and I need a motion from, or a second from, so I'll second that. And then go ahead, Supervisor Garrity.
Well, you're, it's the same, doing the same thing, but you're just having a patrol officer available, correct? Or it's a patrol officer taking the resource position?
Let's ask
I
the
remember
sheriff
you
to
said
come to the
something
podium.
like that. I just don't remember the full.
There's still school resource officers,
Right.
but there was a title, a civil service title of police officer part-time, which we still use for Marine unit officers. Working with Trish, the special patrol officer is more appropriate for a school resource officer, given the duties and jurisdiction, as well as if a school wants to request a waiver, it's easier to get a waiver because the title is most appropriate.
Okay, yeah, I know you said that before. I think I was there. Okay.
And may I just clarify one point on the last request?
Sure.
It says in here, I noticed, to be effective December 20th, 2021. The gentleman who is in civil law enforcement officer position number 2 is still working. We'll be working through, we have a retirement date with the treasurer's office. It'll be through that retirement date in January. Then it'll be removed from the table of organization. Then we would create and fill.
Okay, we may need to make sure we clarify that. Do you need a separate resolution?
You don't need a separate resolution, but you just, if you could make a motion to amend that request.
Okay, we'll make a motion to amend the deletion, that won't take effect until January.
I would say effective upon the retirement of the employee holding that position, civil service law enforcement officer number 2.
Can you give us a date?
I know it's January. We have 3 in January and I don't want to mix it up. It's I believe sometime in the 3rd week of January.
How about we just say the end of the month, January 30th?
We can clarify that. Well, because you're
Oh, we can
creating
fix
one,
it
so
until,
as long as the committee's okay with us changing it for the resolution, we'll get it straight.
okay, we'll fill in the exact date, okay, committee? Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Second by Supervisor Conover, yes.
Jim, it's been a while, refresh my memory here. The positions are county positions and the school districts reimburse us of the costs, but these are county positions. And I guess my follow-on question, you shook your head yes. I think I understand that correctly. And my only other question is, does this fall into, do these positions fall under the bargaining unit?
No, part-time positions do not,
Okay.
only full-time employees.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, I need to get a vote on that, a slight amendment about deleting the position based on the individual's retirement. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that carries. Are we okay, Amanda, for that? All right. Did I take a vote on B?
Got the motion.
Supervisor Merlino, you had your hand up earlier.
Oh, that's fine.
All set?
Mhm.
Anything else? Committee, others? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. All right, the third one, as you'll see in the note, this did not come through committee. It's to increase the salary of the undersheriff effective starting the beginning of the year. Would you
want a
like
motion?
to make a motion? Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor McGowan. Did you have
Open for discussion.
something?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Why didn't this come to committee?
There's,
Go ahead.
my understanding, there's a discussion that the sheriff had with the chair of the committee, and the chair of the committee preferred to send it directly to personnel.
All right. Well, I guess I would have liked to have the discussion, so can we have it now?
Yes, go ahead.
Because I remember our sheriff being here, and I think it was like a performance schedule chart where you came up with that 114 change.
Initially, that's how the number was determined. Yes, I looked at the grade for the position of undersheriff and the longevity. I understand now it's been explained that there are some more variables with that as far as the practice of determining the salary schedule goes. Looking at it now in hindsight, and it probably will put it in better perspective. A leader, when you're picking your team of leadership, you want to select people that have certain qualities and experience. And back in 2019, I made a really great choice, and I'm happy that Terry Como joined our team. But when he did, he'd never even served as a first-line supervisor, had no experience in supervision. And now we're asking him to be in our command staff as a second in charge, an administrator. We met in 2019 and we established a salary, the county administrator and I and the undersheriff, in 2019 of $107,941. During that time, again, Terry Como was untested. We're establishing a salary for a new employee that we don't know how well they're going to perform. If you take that number and you just add COLAs for the following 2 years, or you compare it to the salary increases that have been added to our union employees through collective bargaining, getting to 114,514 it's a reasonable number. It's consistent with where we should be. That doesn't take into account merit or any change in grade or anything additional.
I know a lot of times when we have someone coming in a new position, we, don't always fill them at the position where the person left. For instance, a person leaving typically has a lot of experience, so their salary may be higher than the new person coming in who has less supervisory experience. And my understanding is that our last undersheriff left at 106. Is that correct? 106,000?
I didn't come prepared with that number. My apologies.
That's okay. I believe that's where it was. I did do a little bit of research when I saw this one coming up on the agenda. Supervisor McGowan.
All right, I just to follow up, because I'm just, the phone is rang a couple times, and Sheriff, I agree with you. I believe Terry was a phenomenal choice. I have a lot of respect for him. But the phone calls that I've really got, the agreement, at the particular time, because he was coming out of retirement, and I guess that was $35,000 plus his retirement and blah, blah, blah. And I see that he is really a step forward, and has been a huge plus for the department. And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem giving him the money, but I have a problem at the 114, that large amount of money on a table of scale, because the way it's handled. I don't have a problem going back to, the other, the 106. And, I got a list here of the different undersheriffs. Hamilton County, 78,000, Washington County, 90,000, Essex County, 74,000, Saratoga County, 102,000. And not that I want to, keep those comparisons but I don't have a problem starting off, and I believe it is budgeted. Are we budgeted for 106,000 for the undersheriff for next year?
I can ask that question. Is that a suggestion to amend the proposal to 106,000?
I'm thinking in all fairness, because what it's going to scare me is people are going to see this as a huge, they're not going to know everything. And then all of a sudden, the last undersheriff was making 106, but the new undersheriff is going to be making 115. And the other employee is going to say, well, that's a heck of a raise. And I don't want that to happen. So at least we could say, look, he's getting compensated for what the undersheriff, and then we can move through with the process of, going through the new salary chart. What do we call it?
May I clarify?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Kind of goes along with what Supervisor Bramer said. So the salary for the undersheriff in 2019 was 106,000 and change. If you, which is consistent with what we do with all of our employees, if you took a COLA from 106 for 2020, 2021, carry that into 2022, we're within hundreds of dollars of the range of where we're at. Please understand that the salary for the undersheriff, Terry Cuomo made no agreements with anyone to come in and serve the county and our residents at a salary of $35,000. If you go back to the adopted budget for 2020, the salary for undersheriff is over $107,000. It was reduced based upon his personal preference and the issues with retirement, but there were no agreements to try to go to. And a salary was agreed upon for the undersheriff for 2020 for $107,000. It was agreed upon between the county administrator and I, and then approved by this board. I believe all the members who are in here approved him to have a salary of 107 for 2020. I don't know why you would reduce what you've approved 2 or 3 years later. It seems contradictory to me. I think so many are focused on the fact that the salary, it appears as though to some who are not informed, it looks as though the salary may be increasing from 35,000 to 114, which just is not the case. I never submitted a resolution request to reduce a non-bargaining unit employee's salary. It was reduced, but the salary for the undersheriff is not $35,000.
Well, Sheriff, I do want to, I did some Googling and found the Post-Star article where the undersheriff was lauded for requesting the reduction in the salary to 35,000.
He had to make the request because working with a financial planner, it was determined that was the best for he and his family at the time.
Right. I don't
But-
want to get into his, but I'm just saying this board did reduce it at his request. It wasn't that we came up with it out of nowhere.
I believe we have a resolution.
I'm not saying that, but prior to that, the board also voted and approved Terry Cuomo to have a salary of 107,000 plus 2 years ago for 2020. So again, if you approve that then, not knowing his experience, not knowing how well he'd perform, now you know everything this man offers to Warren County, and I know personally what he does for our sheriff's office. I think reducing the salary of what you approved 2 years ago by $1,000 would be a huge slap in the face. And you can easily articulate this to people. I understand your constituents are going to call you with questions. And I'm not asking you to advocate for us. I'm not asking you to argue for us. But I think if you're armed with information, and I think I've explained it relatively clearly, they may not agree with you. They may think you're still wrong. But if you know you're doing what's right, then that's right.
Supervisor Garrity.
Well, the only statement I was going to make is the salary, irregardless of who's in there.
Right, right.
And so that's what you really got to look at. You got to look at if the gentleman hadn't requested to do it the way he did it. So you take it, and I do believe what Sheriff is trying to get across is it was a 106. You would have gone through the salary schedule. It would have showed an increase based on the 106 up to a certain amount. And then this past year it would have been potentially increased again to a certain amount. So, I mean, we ought to try to get to that certain amount. And I don't know if this is above the certain amount that it would have ended up as, but I think what everybody's got to forget is there's going to be a salary for the undersheriff irregardless. If that gentleman said, geez, you know, I want to give you back $50,000, that's, you know, that's good. And it worked out for the county. But I think if he had left the job, you would have had to pay somebody else that salary. So I think what we need to do is get to that where we would have been going into 2022 perceivably. And if that's different than what the sheriff is requesting, he can make his case for that.
Right.
Or the people who did the salary schedule could enlighten us.
I think it's important that we remember that we're, you know, we will have to pay an undersheriff one way or another. And the salary study that was done, the highest of our surrounding counties was what, Brad, 90,000?
102 at Saratoga.
Okay,
102,
okay.
220.
I see you, Ron. I want to, Brad had his hand up.
Yes, you know,
And then,
to amend that from 106, I don't have a problem, you know, amending that to 107. But I really would like it to come to committee. I don't want to take anything away from, you know, Terry. I believe he does a good job and we have that budgeted. But I don't know what the budget numbers are, all right? And not going through committee and our sheriff is, sorry, Sheriff, you presented a really good case and I really would like to, but I really think that let's get it right there, get it back to committee and get some, you know, some numbers out because, you know, you bump that up to that, the next thing, you know, are you going to come and say, well, look, you know, I deserve more money because now Terry's making more money. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And then it becomes a snowball effect. So I'm just, is that something that the board, you know, would really to do? Is I know we have X amount budgeted for next year. That's just my thought, but you know, I'm only one of 20.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we benefited financially hugely when Terry came on board because he was at a cap on his retirement. Now he's been able to transition out of retirement to the position. And I agree with the chairperson and Garrity and everyone here. I mean, position pay, so basically, we've gone out and hired somebody, we would be paying this amount or thereabouts. And I think that kudos to Terry coming over when he did, for what he did. And he probably at that time had to learn. It's not like we know, you know, P's and Q's are coming out of retirement, what's required and what's required, exactly what's required, but we benefited over that period because we weren't paying 106 or 100 or 90 or 130. We were paying, you know, up to the cap. And he worked full time and he did the job. And so, you know, I don't think we should be bashful about saying, you know, thank you. But now the sheriff has someone that he wants to be his full-time undersheriff, that he has confidence in, and that's what the position is graded at, and that's what it pays. And so, as far as what the final number is, I mean, I'll leave that up to those of you that are more intimate with the situation, but I don't think that the sheriff and Terry should be disparaged for having saved this county an awful lot of money.
I don't want any appearance that we're disparaging anyone. I will say as personnel chair, there have been other requests coming through about increasing people's salaries and we've been holding the line, so to speak. So I just want that to be out there. Supervisor Beatty, then Driscoll, then Hogan, then I see your hand up again, Garrity. Sure. Supervisor Garrity. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The undersheriff, before Terry came on, left at 106. He was an experienced person. when we hire people, we hire them in a salary range. We don't automatically put them at what the last person made. They may be more experienced, they may be less experienced. And I think that's a misnomer here that I think we're kind of getting, unless I'm wrong, and it's a possibility. But we don't automatically hire somebody in at what the last person made. I know for a fact we haven't done that in other cases up here at the county. We've actually paid more, we've actually paid less. So the sheriff even said, well, he came in with no supervisory experience. Supervisor Conover said basically the same thing. So I'm not sure if the board would have brought him in at the 106 under those parameters, because he wasn't where the sheriff said he needed to be on a supervisory experience. Now, he's done a great job for these 2 years, but so I'm not comfortable at all with going to 114 based on all that information. I would be comfortable at 106 or 107, that's what we budgeted. But I wouldn't be comfortable at all at 114. And let's remember one other thing. You know, this isn't a 1 year thing. This isn't an additional payment. This, let's say he's there for the next, you know, the rest of the term and another 6 years. Well, that's 6 times additional 7,000 or 8,000. That's another 42, 45,000 to the county. Right? A lot of times in public service, we miss that out. When I was on the school board, I know it's only, you know, it's only $2,000 for the year. Well, the average teacher is there 25 years. That's a $50,000 plus. So, you know, we got to look at the long term too. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. And this isn't about him. This is about the process and about the qualifications at the time he was hired and so forth. So, thank you.
Chairwoman?
Supervisor Driscoll.
Oh,
Let me,
let
go ahead.
Sheriff
Yep.
speak.
I don't really know Robert's rules very well, but it helps me to respond. Are you leaving, Supervisor Beatty? Absolutely.
Well,
It just helps to respond to each point, but
maybe you
I'll
let
wait my
Supervisor
turn.
Driscoll
Yes.
go, and then we'll come back. We'll definitely come back to you, Sheriff.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll try to be quick. It's been my experience working with a number of other counties over my career that I agree that evaluations of salary structures are valuable, but they shouldn't be the deciding factor in voting. Even though you have job descriptions, oftentimes the duties and responsibilities, the day-to-day duties and responsibilities, the things that people are accomplishing are very different, even with our neighboring counties. I cite the fact that up in Hamilton County, 26 years ago, their Department of Social Services, and we've got a beautiful human service building. The Department of Social Services serving a lot of different programs was the double wide trailer in Indian Lake. So it's not really fair to assess what's going on in one county versus the other. Just a suggestion that we can look at those rates, but to compare ourselves with Saratoga County, Washington County, or Essex County isn't the end all as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Supervisor Hogan, or do you want to go, Sheriff?
I'll wait.
Okay. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just have a question. It's my understanding, and this is in no way reflective of anybody's job performance, these questions, or even this whole discussion. And I think we need to be very, very cautious in the language that we use to avoid any appearance that it is. And that's on both sides of this discussion. But my question is this: it's my understanding that this individual is a retiree. So does this salary displace any of the retirement benefits that he's receiving? Does it have any impact? Are we, are we skating the line on the perception of perhaps some sort of double dipping? I don't know. I guess I don't know if this is a question for you, Sheriff, or for the county attorney.
I can answer it. It does. He will have a reduced benefit through retirement. So, but again, that's a choice that he's made. But for the county and the residents, having a retiree in a position actually represents a savings because the county's not paying into the retirement portion as fringe for their salary. So having Terry Como in that position actually represents a savings to your taxpayers.
But he is also receiving retirement benefits.
He is.
Okay. And the salary range doesn't have any impact on that, or?
I don't know how you could take that into consideration with anything as far as establishing a salary. What he does on the outside or any of the investments or things like that that he has should have no reflection or bearing on establishment of his salary.
Does it restrict his ability to do these duties in any way? Does he restricted to a certain number of hours or?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I had Supervisor Garrity on my list. Now I'll come back to you. Unless you want to, do you want to let Mr. Elman speak to that?
I was just gonna make a quick, go back to my original comment. The position was paid at X number of dollars. The increase was put in the next budget at X number of dollars. And if you base that factor and you based your increases and at the time, I don't think we were looking at who was in the undersheriff's position when we set the salary in 2021. I don't think we were looking at anybody's position and set the salary. You set it based on the job. And then, so you had an increase. It would have gone to certain, he would have taken the job at that amount of money. Then based on how you do your increases, the committee, it would have gone up a little bit. So I'm fine with just following that logic. I don't know. That's all I'm saying, because I think we're making too much out of who it is versus the position. That's all I'm saying. You, whatever.
I'll go to the budget officer, then I'll come back over to you, Mr. Elman.
I think that at the time when it was budgeted, there was a 3% pay raise that went into the salary, but there was also steps. As that chart has steps on it, and this gentleman's been here a number of years. Actually, it could have been higher.
Mr. Elman?
This was a compromise, actually.
I wanted to clearly state and amplify what Sheriff LaFar said on the law. And it's just to clarify for Supervisor Hogan, her question and the series of questions which she asked. Under New York State law, any retiree in any New York State pension fund is allowed to have further and other employment. The exception is if the retiree is not turning 65 years old in the current year of earning, in this case 2022, there is a cap on how long he or she can collect pension benefits from the plan administrator. So the cap is $35,000. So any employee who's also a retiree of the New York State system can receive their pension benefits up to the first $35,000 of outside income or other income other than from the pension. It's at that point where it's the retiree's responsibility and obligation, and the retiree's obligation only, to ensure that the pension fund has previously been notified or is notified that they have reached the $35,000 limitation so that they should not receive further pension benefits from that point in the calendar year forward. So it's a lot of words, but basically any individual who's a retiree can earn up to $35,000 with no impact on their earned pension benefits for that year. It's only when any retiree exceeds that $35,000 amount that $35,000 cap, that an obligation and responsibility is placed on that retiree to notify the pension fund to stop further payments. And liability rests with the retiree, between the retiree and the pension fund, should that not occur. So that's basically a statement of what the law is, and I hope that clarifies for Supervisor Hogan the questions that she was asking.
Thank you. It does.
All right, guys, I think we should wrap up this conversation. I do want to make one note about the salary chart. There are other high-level employees who have been here for a long time, and we don't necessarily assign them the farthest out in their years of increment. That is not an automatic. On that note, go ahead, Frank. Yeah,
We didn't hear either.
okay.
He had enough years to be at least one more step, if not maybe two.
Beyond what
Yeah.
was assigned to him?
Yeah, beyond what's.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question, unless there's any further discussion or that type of thing.
I don't know.
Yes?
What is the question?
The question is raising his salary to $114,514 effective January 1st.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where does that fall in our salary chart? Can somebody tell me?
Sure. This position under sheriff is a grade 20 on the non-union chart.
Okay.
So that salary is the 25th increment for a grade 20.
Meaning he's been here 25 years in that position.
The 25
He's
years-
eligible for,
You become eligible for the 25th increment when you've had at least 25 years of county service.
how many years of service has he had?
30.
Supervisor Garrity.
So is it realistic for us sitting here to believe that if this gentleman received that salary of whatever, it wouldn't be out of the realm? It would be in line with what potentially the budget officer and the folks that set the salary would have come up with, irregardless of this other deal about the 35,000?
I think that's the question the supervisors are gonna answer right now with a vote.
But no, I'm asking the people who would have set the salaries. Did you folks set this salary?
I was not involved with that. That was prior, I don't remember who was personnel chair, but Frank remembers apparently that there was a discussion
Well,
about
that's
his
what we-
salary increment. Go ahead, Frank.
That's what we budgeted for.
So you budgeted for this,
For the 114, whatever.
and you're comfortable with it? As far as, well, yeah, I mean, it was in our budget.
I budgeted for that, so yes, I am.
Okay.
Frank, I just want to clarify. Are you talking about when he first came on board or for 2022?
22.
For 22?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? I saw 3. That carries. All right. Anything else, Sheriff, for us today? Okay. Thank you. All right, Mr. Moore, we're to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 12A, I alluded to earlier today, much earlier today in the Public Health Committee meeting, and this is to assist the Public Health Department in recruiting contact tracers. These two resolutions, 156 and 490 of 2020, they each created up to 10 per diem positions for contact tracers. So what we're proposing to do in this case is to strike out the 10, replace it with 35, knowing that'll make it a little easier for payroll to handle the change. And it will make it so that she effectively has an unlimited cap on the number of bodies that can serve as contact tracers.
Thank you. I'm very much in support of this. However, we can give them flexibility. I think that's great. So Supervisor Driscoll on the motion, second by Supervisor McGowan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
Thank you. 12B is a housekeeping item. The tentative budget was introduced before the new county attorney was appointed by the Board of Supervisors via Resolution 463 of 2021, and also before the special assistant position was created by the Board of Supervisors pursuant to Resolution 462 of 2021. So the 2022 salary scale amendments that are reflected in this agenda item, they reflect the 2021 salary scale amendments that the board already made for these positions pursuant to Resolution 462 of 2021. So it's basically just a timing issue where the budget was in before we did these positions. The board already amended the salaries for 2021, and this is just to carry forward those amendments into 2022.
22. Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Second. Supervisor McGowan. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. And the third item, this is in reference to, if you recall last year, we had a situation where three high-level employees in public health, the director and the two deputies, if you will, Pat Belden and Val. Val is the deputy who oversees the nurses. They, because of COVID, were in a situation where they could not use all of their accrued time off. Because they're employees who were hired before 2012, the way they accrue their time is they get it all in a lump sum in the beginning of the year, and they need to use it before the end of the year or else they lose it. They have the ability to carry over 5 vacation days into the following year. But anything else that you don't use, you lose, unless there's an extenuating circumstance. Our non-union policy on utilizing your time, if you want to go by the letter of the law and the policy, states that for your vacation that you're unable to carry over, that you did not have the ability to take. That also applies to your floating holidays. Your vacation, your floating holidays, you're able to make a petition to the Board of Supervisors to get paid out for that time. That's what our policy says. What we did last year was a little bit of a departure from the policy because these three employees also had personal time and they had days in lieu of. A day in lieu of is when you have to work like the 4th of July, a holiday. So you put in for a day in lieu of that holiday. So you had these three employees this time last year with vacation time, floating holiday, personal time, and day in lieu of. And rather than go down the route of cashing out the vacation time and the floating holidays, the board made the decision to just allow them to carry all of it over and to hopefully utilize it in 2021 because the pandemic would be over. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now we're in a position where these employees have hardly been able to use any of their 2020 time. They've also amassed additional time in 2021. And there's a breakout of that in your agenda packet so that you see the full extent of the hours that they would be losing and the financial liability that's tied to those hours. So the question before the committee is what you want to do with this time, whether you want to pay it out or handle it in some other manner.
Okay, and I do want to point out to the committee, as we're making a decision on this, it's a break from our policy to pay this out. So I'm suggesting a one-time payment. We try to make this a one-time payment. And also that it's my understanding, I think what you just said, Ryan, is that we typically do pay out vacation and floating holiday, but not the personal and the days in lieu of. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the policy states that personal time has to be used in the year in which you earn it, and the days in lieu of have to be used within 6 months. So the policy doesn't provide for a carryover of either of those two or a cash out of either of those two. So if you want to handle those two in a different manner, we're essentially doing what we did last year, and we're doing something outside the scope of the policy to reflect an extraordinary circumstance.
Right. I just want to make sure the committee understood that. I mean, I feel a little bit more comfortable with the payout of just the vacation and floating holiday, but if we go all the way, we should try to say that these are extenuating circumstances related to that. Supervisor Garrity, and then Driscoll, and then the treasurer.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're treating everybody the same because based on their COVID.
I have tried very hard to get a report from HR regarding anyone else who's out there with this situation. And my understanding is that there were a couple, they have been notified of this opportunity coming up to committee, and they are electing to take their time rather than to request the payout that we are offering here to these three.
So right now, it doesn't look like there'll be any time for these 3 employees to take in 2022, even within 6 months. Do they want it this way?
I believe they want the payout, yes.
Then I'll make a motion, we do it.
Thank you for the motion. Second from Supervisor McGowan, and then I'll go to Supervisor Driscoll.
Great, thank
I'm sorry.
you.
Go ahead, yeah.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you, Kevin, for asking the question that I was going to ask also. I would like to vote on moving this to the full committee, and then after that, consult with the county attorney as to the appropriateness of my voting on the matter at our board meeting.
Okay,
So.
that's fine. Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. Chairwoman Saber, did you want to say something quickly? And then I will go to you, Treasurer.
I do. I'm stepping in and out for a couple commitments, but I did want to say what Supervisor Garrity just pointed out, I think is really important, that it's fair to everyone. And I had Administrator Moore do a complete look through the entire county, and there were department heads that were in this situation but have elected to take their time. I'm in full support of this, but in the interest of being fair, I'll just remind everyone here, you just took your own policy and the vote that you made previously, where every single department head is not at their full years of service. Just be prepared to answer that question from some very upset department heads that are going to say to you, I've been here 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, and you aren't paying me at my max. So in the interest of being fair, I think what you just did here today for the payouts and looked at every single employee was incredibly important.
Thank you. Again, I did ask Jackie to pull reports. She has done that. As far as I know, there isn't anyone else in this situation. Certainly, if an employee comes up to us and says,
We got to treat them the same.
we have to treat them the same. I completely agree. So hopefully between now and the board meeting, any employees still out there that we may not have discovered will come to us. Treasurer Swan.
Yeah, I just want to say that after the discussion at the ARPA committee the other day about this, I went back and my staff and we researched this, and this is an eligible fund for an ARPA expense. And in my opinion, this is what ARPA is designed for, is to take care of situations like this and not have the taxpayer pay for this.
Thank you. I was just thinking, let's have Supervisor Hogan speak to this, and there she is.
It was my impression that the committee is willing to entertain this as an eligible ARPA, and Doug's nodding. I see that. So but we just need to get it done, honestly. So our next ARPA meeting is Tuesday. If you want to bounce it back, but it did get bounced from one to the other.
Right. I think that the ARPA committee just wasn't ready. We're not at the stage of yet, formally allocating dollars, but I do think that it was a consensus of the ARPA committee at the appropriate time to use money for this purpose.
Exactly. And I think the committee also understands that, no, we haven't fully formulated a spending plan to propose to the full board, but that we also need to be somewhat able to be responsive.
Right.
And this is a case, we're not going to make them wait until June to get this.
Mr. Moore.
Yes, the only point I wanted to make in terms of the point of equity is that any non-union employee under the policy has the ability to petition the Board of Supervisors for this. We did a review. We're confident that there's nobody else out there. But if somebody's circumstance should change in December, then they still have the ability to bring this forward in next year. And we have precedent for that. We have resolutions in the past where department heads primarily have come in January to petition the board for that payout, and that's been granted. So it's if we think we did a very thorough job there, but if something changes, then we have the ability to remedy it.
And I will say too that I've been encouraging Janelle, I know others have, the chairwoman has, to try to take some time, and those positions that we are hiring today that came through committee earlier will hopefully help them take a little burden off of them so they can actually take time off. Because this accruing all this time is, fine, but it's not really sustainable for the health of the department. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, I concur completely. I mean, my first thought on it when I think about things like this is extend the use or lose it time. But you get to a point where, especially now we're into year 2, where this is approaching the ridiculous, because now what we would be saying is that we have major people that are going to leave for 3 months, 4 months, or whatever the amount of time is, and that's not reasonable. It's not as employers, I don't think that's reasonable. I mean, at a certain point here, during this virus, we're going to have to deal with issues like this, and we're just going to have to suck it up, and we're going to have to deal with it. I mean, and no one likes to try to explain this, particularly the taxpayers or anyone else. But quite frankly, these people have been great soldiers for Warren County during a very difficult time, and have done an incredible job. And I don't think we should be bashful about saying, that we can't continue to carry this forward, because we need these people in the future to be here, and think about the sacrifice of their families.
Yeah.
So I'm in support of this.
All right. I think everybody is. We're going to do the full amount here laid out in 12C. Is that correct, committee?
That's fine.
Okay. I have a motion, right? And a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Moore?
No, nothing further. Thank you, committee. Thank you.
In your report. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Just one little thing.
Yes. Gary.
My understanding that we did not move the undersheriff to the far end of his years of service. Is that correct?
The 2022 scale, the salary, I got to check it again. The grade 20, 25th increment.
Right. And he has 30 years.
His start date at the county was August 13th, 1990.
And his start date as undersheriff?
His start date as undersheriff would have been January 1st, 2020.
When did he retire?
Retired, I believe, I'd have to go back in my notes, but when he retired from the sheriff's office, it would have been a couple of years before he became undersheriff. And there was no gap in service because he was a county coroner.
Thank you.
I can give you one example right now, but I guess I don't know if I want to, I feel like it's getting into an individual person's performance, but there's at least one department head who we are basing her number of years on less than her full amount of time at the county, much less. All right, in any event, moving on. Item number 13 is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule for 2022 to defund all of the stipends, majority leader, minority leader, and chair of the board. This is something that we've heard a lot about this year, and I think based on a lot of supervisors' desire to see fairness and equity and to remove division and probably remove some litigation, as was mentioned earlier today in our county attorney's report. And as a reminder that we're really in this together, we're all in this together. So the proposal is to remove all of the stipends as listed there in item number 13. Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion?
Bring that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I will make that second. Any further discussion? Supervisor McGowan.
I agree with you. It's been a long year. It's been brought up so many times. We do have litigation over it. And as I've been saying all year long, there's no I in team. So let's make it all an equal playing field and just eliminate it, defund it, and work as a team. So, all right, made a motion.
Thank you. Supervisor Conover,
Well, sure. I mean,
you'll bite?
surprise, surprise, right? And here we are within what, 26 or 27 or 28 days?
Ron, can you speak?
26,
Sorry.
27 or 28 days of constituting a new board with new board members. And the new board will, regardless of who's chair, will constitute their own rules. And I would have voted and wanted to vote for deleting this throughout this entire year. It's curious to me that it appears now, especially because it will be up to the new board to decide what rules they wish to have going forward. And I think for us to take action now at this late date prior to the new board in the first week of January is it's unnecessary. And that having been said, if you wanted to put in front of me at this late stage to, you know, suspend the salary of the minority and majority leader from now to the end of the year, I don't know how I would vote. Up till now, I would have voted not just yes, but heck yes. I might vote yes on that. But if you're going to start throwing logs on the fire that haven't even been discussed or considered by the board, and there are other logs, there are other issues I suppose we could put on the fire as well. It's so I would say at this stage that this item should be tabled by this committee. It will be entertained by the new board in January, which is appropriately what should happen. And so I would make a motion at this moment in time to table this matter. And I would ask for the support of the committee to table this matter. And let's let the new board in January deal with the issue as part of their organization. And because we have new board members coming in and we shouldn't be dictating anything to the new board members as to what they should or should not be doing. And that's my position. So I would make a motion that we table this matter for a lot of reasons, up into and including the lateness of the hour.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. I'll just say, you know, people have asked for this discussion to happen. I'll call the question. All those in favor of tabling the discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed.
I'm opposed.
That carries. Moving on. County Treasurer.
All right, this item of pulling my payroll supervisor and payroll technician out of the union and making them non-union employees. I went back and looked. I've been working on this for 7 years, going all the way back to when Administrator Dusick was here. And there's been a lot of meetings, a lot of this and that. At one point, Larry Peltowitz was going to take it to PERB. It was supposed to go to the negotiating team, to the union. I haven't heard whether anything happened with that. The only thing I can say is that there are no counties that have payroll people that are in the union. They are all out of the union employees. There's just a multitude of reasons why this should be. One of them is that over the course of the last 10 years that I've been in the treasurer's office, there have been multiple times when the negotiating team has asked my payroll staff to work up figures and estimates and so forth to take to the negotiating table to work against the union. And that kind of, to me, rubs the wrong way when you got somebody that's in the union working on some of that stuff to give it to somebody to fight against the union. So it's just, to me, it's a conflict. I would request that I'm pretty much done with this. So I'm asking that this committee refer it to the board so that we can have this and get it done.
All right.
One
And
way
I
or
have
the
a
other.
motion to, for the request to remove these two positions from the CSEA union. Supervisor Garrity,
I have a question first.
Supervisor McGowan,
I'll make the motion.
and I'll second. Go ahead,
Okay.
Supervisor Garrity.
My question is, if we have a procedure to do this, why don't we just garner the negotiating team or get a hold of, have we written to the union and requested it informally?
Yes.
Treasurer Swan? The
Yes.
answer is yes.
How
Okay.
long ago?
Multiple times over the last 7 years.
But I mean, recently,
19
Probably.
19 or 20.
so why don't we just revisit it through the proper channels? And then if they deny it, then we'll have to,
They have denied it.
but I don't know. I don't know what the procedure, I guess that's what my question is. I'm asking what the procedure is. If the union balks, what can we do as the next step?
We take them out of the union, then it goes to PERB, and the PERB makes the final call. And that's what I'm asking for here.
Okay.
Let's just get it
All
to
right,
PERB
fine.
and make the final call, and then it's done, and it's over with.
As long as we're comfortable doing that, it's fine.
Supervisor McGowan?
I've been here for 4 years and Treasurer Swan has brought this up in time and time again. And being a business owner in a non-union, but also having good friends that have been in the union, I have the utmost respect for the unions. But in this particular case, I can see the conflict that our treasurer sees. So for 7 years, he's worked on this. And I can tell by his tone, he's really had it. So can't we get it to Perks and move forward and get this done?
I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All right, hold on. Go ahead, Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back to Supervisor Charities. We have a contract with the union. We have agreements. What are the implications, perhaps for our county attorney, perhaps for Ryan, of acting unilaterally relative to the agreement? Now, I'm not saying that at this moment, whether we should or we shouldn't. I just want to understand the implications of acting unilaterally on an agreement, a contract we have with the union. That's my question.
I think that at some point, they're going to need board approval to do what the treasurer is asking. I will ask Administrator Moore if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, that's why it goes to PERB. The PERB is the Public Employee Relations Board. They exist in order to resolve these types of
Right.
problems. When you have a situation where the union alleges that it's an improper practice, we'll both make our cases and PERB will resolve it.
That's all I'm looking for, is to get it to that point so that we can put this to bed.
That answers my question. Thank you.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Any further discussion? Supervisor McGowan, last one for you, so make it good.
Thank you. No, I mean, like I said, if Treasurer Swan is correct in saying that there is nobody in the treasurer's department in the state or counties that are in the union, then, it shouldn't be a problem here going through the PERS. But I believe this is really what needs to be done. So thank you. So you got a motion?
I do. Yep. Any further discussion? Looking at you, Supervisor Conover. Make sure I don't miss
I
you.
just want to be clear in my mind that it would be best if we had, if both parties agreed that this should happen. We don't have that agreement. And so if we do act unilaterally, we should expect that there's going to be is a correct word, grievance, and somebody's going to deny that grievance, and then it's going to be resolved in front of the Public Employee Relations Board. Ryan?
It would be my hope, especially if we have unanimity or close to it from the Board of Supervisors, that we believe these positions are properly out of the unit. It would be my hope that we'd be able to take that resolution back to the union and sit down with them. They're good negotiating partners. So it'd be my hope that maybe they would consent to it and we wouldn't have to go through PERB. But if they don't consent to it, then we go through PERB.
That's fine. That's fine.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Aye. Opposed. That carries.
Thank you.
I would like the committee's approval to remove item number 2 from the pending items list. Mr. Colvin has given us update on the Nova Times, and I think we have a good plan in place. Is that all right with everyone? Good.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we still have this formalization of the Employee of the Month program. And to be honest, I haven't made any progress on that.
Okay, we'll leave it on.
We'll leave it on.
You want a motion to adjourn?
Let me just see if there's any public comment on YouTube, Mr. Lehman. I will. All right. Not hearing anything, I'll call for that motion to adjourn. Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Conover. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, carried.